Tornado on top of it with a recording, y'all. So I, you know, I didn't have any experience. They said, thank you very much for your time, and I left. And that weekend, I went and learned Drupal in a weekend. I called the recruiter back up on Monday and said, hey, I just spent the whole weekend getting my head deep into Drupal. I hope you'll consider me. He let the hiring manager know, and the guy said, that's a no-brainer, hire him. And my career is just taking off from there. I've worked government since 2015. Actually used to work for Lee, the talker downstairs. He and I, just the two of us in his office, building large websites, lots of data for Oak Ridge National Labs, dealing with nuclear and biofuel data, lots of data. Really, really cool stuff. Learned a lot from Lee. The guy he's been doing software engineering for 30 years. So, yeah. But, yeah, I ended up loving this as a career. I've taught several classes, adults and teenagers, how to code. And I've actually just fired off a new venture, Stack Elevate. That's what these cards are. And stackelevate.dev exists to help you learn Drupal adjacent tools and technologies, and that you can achieve the next milestone in your salary for your career. So that's my spiel. But I'm also an open source contributor, and that's another really cool thing about Drupal, and we'll talk a little bit about community in a little bit, is the open source is more than the code. Drupal as a community is impressive in its ability to help people get in, contribute, give back, communicate, have fun, and enjoy building a product that is truly free, truly open source, and making it really, really better. It's really, really cool. And contributing doesn't just mean code. It can mean getting into the issue queue and, hey, can we get a little bit more details about how to recreate this bug? Just popping something like that in when you see an issue that just needs a little bit more information. That's contributing. Giving talks, learning to give talks. Is a great way, by the way, to learn a thing you want to get better at. You know that there's this thing I want to get good at. Give a talk on it, because that'll motivate you. You've got a deadline when you're going to give the talk, and you've got to present on it, so you've got to know your material. I'm telling you, giving talks is the best way to learn anything. Okay, so enough about that. So what is Drupal? Drupal, I don't have my presenter slides. There's a whole lot more to this, but basically the idea is it's content management, and you can make something amazing for anyone. So that could be the editor or the person who just types in the text and lays that out and publishes it, and somebody who's more design oriented. You can make it so that they can just drag and drop blocks around and present a landing page that is marketing focused or content focused. You're trying to publish to your community or to your large organization, and so giving those tools to folks who aren't developers. And as far as the history of Drupal and how big it is and where it is, I mean, 118,000 active contributors to the community. By the way, these numbers are from a slide from 2019. So some of these have grown significantly, but we are talking about millions of websites. It's a huge community, large market share. A lot of the web is on WordPress. WordPress has some impressive numbers when it comes to how many websites, and especially smaller marketing kind of websites. But when it comes to the larger enterprise, government, higher ed, medical space, or spaces, I should say, you're going to find it's heavier leaning toward Drupal. And so, actually, let me share this real quick. So speaking of some numbers and statistics from just another source, this is a fairly recent article. 17 million websites. Of the top 10,000 websites, 12% are Drupal. Lots of modules, Some of those are outdated and older, but there are a lot of go-to modules that the community just knows, hey, you need to be able to do this thing. Here's a module for that. It's kind of like there's an app for that. There's probably a module that is already built by the community and available for free. One of the things, as far as a career goes, by the way, about Drupal, is Drupal has been progressively changing. And Drupal 7 is a version of Drupal that saw huge adoption. And then they completely rewrote Drupal for Drupal 8. And it changed the game as far as the flexibility and what we're able to do as developers, designers, themers, site builders. But it was a difficult lift for many of those Drupal 7 agencies or enterprise organizations to make the jump. So half of the sites are still on Drupal 7, and Drupal 7 will reach end of life later this year. So it's a massive market need right now to just help them go from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So if you're looking for that kind of opportunity, that's just there. Okay. So what is Drupal? It is high performance. It offers simplicity for editors. I talked a little bit about, obviously, a person that you're targeting as a designer or developer is the person who's going to go in and edit the site. So while it may be the case that you'll wear multiple hats, you might be the content editor, the designer, the site builder, and all of those things mixed into one, just getting a small website out. But as you get to bigger and bigger enterprise organizations, all of those roles are spread out. For example, I work at an organization where 3-4 developers, we've built a turnkey Drupal platform that we can spin out websites. We have 500 government clients who they each have an office of members who go on and edit the websites. And then us, in our part of the organization, we have designers and themers who build out themes that these offices can pick and choose from. And then we also have a support team who are basically site builders. What you'll be learning in today's Drupal in a Day training, if you stick around for that, site builders who support the office staff when their role as an editor just crosses over and like, hey, I need this thing, but it's not here. So the support team, site builders will go in and add that functionality. But sometimes it floats all the way up to us as the platform developers because it's like, everybody needs this, so let's inject it into the platform and build this out for everybody. So it is leader in multilingual. As far as content management systems is concerned, being able to add multilingual to a project is just there. The module is part of core, and being able to support adding multiple languages. And then in addition to not only what just comes with core, there are tools available that can help you with translation, and there are organizations that can help you with translation. So if you don't have the language team on site, there are tools that just work. They basically can act as editors who can come in, have access to translating the content, submit that for approval, and it goes. So a lot of really cool stuff there. One of the things that, as a site builder and themer and developer, if you've I don't know how to say it. Drupal is built for security. The best practices in in hiding any secret codes or passwords or keys that need to be involved. There are ways of storing them so that they don't sit in a database, but they are secured in a better way on the server. And Drupal has best practices and documentation on how to do that well. And a lot of the community tries to, when they offer up a module that takes any of that secure stuff, there are modules that they integrate with to make sure that that's done well and done right. So security is a big concern, and it's one we definitely check off in the community really well. Accessibility. I heard a bunch of people mention government. So accessibility is a huge part of Drupal out of the box. Building accessible websites, themes, and just taking advantage of what comes there. It's not fully accessible out of the box. You've got to work with a themer. You've got to or use a theme that is accessible out of the box. But the tools are definitely there. There are modules that interact with Site Improve and other tools for monitoring your accessibility. So a lot of that's there. Do you have a question?
No.
You're holding up your glasses.
Sorry.
Come for the software, stay for the community. This is kind of a Drupalism, and it's totally true. You guys are here at Drupal Camp Chattanooga, open source camp, and they mentioned downstairs DrupalCon, a really nice event, sometimes a week, 3 days to a week if I remember right. Yeah, it's about 3 days. And they're held all over North America once a year. It's been in Portland, Baltimore, Atlanta. Atlanta's actually coming up next. Seattle, so Nashville. So these are fun events to go to. Again, just like with this event today, it's a fire hose, lots of information. You come out of there exhausted from how much you've learned, but also how many questions you have. And it's really great. These community events are a great way to get connected to other people in Drupal, and they're a great way to learn what you don't know. Because only when you learn what you don't know can you ask the right question, right? So the next camp that I'm aware of is in February, Florida Camp. This is one of my favorite locations. I don't know if you got the picture of it, but Lee likes to go to camps. I mean, you heard how many shirts he had, right? I used to go with him to all those camps because it was just me and him, and he'd be like, "Let's go," and he'd pay for it. So that's how that works. We did 4 camps a year roughly, and so all over the Southeast. I've been up to Bad Camp, Bay Area Camp in San Francisco, and just all over the place. But this is one of my favorites, Florida Camp. They're coming up in February, so look them up. So I'm curious who you are. We got a little bit of an introduction to you guys in the session there. I heard some government folks, but some of you might be product owners, you might be managers, you might be an entrepreneur hoping to start something. You might be just starting out for the first time in any career at all, or wanting to get into a new career. You might be a manager, project managers, or managers of developer teams. You might be a developer, or you might be a designer. Right? Drupal, learning the basics of Drupal and being in a Drupal career, this is a lot of the roles that we interplay with as far as actually making a Drupal project come to life, right? And one of those roles, the first one you guys have probably heard me mention several times, is the site builder. So this is somebody who, it's different than an editor. An editor, they log in, they pop some content to the site, and they hit publish, or they send it off to get approved to be published, or things of that nature. So those are the editors of the site. But in order for that site to have lived, you've got to configure it. You've got to say, hey, yeah, we're going to have articles because we're going to have a blog, and we should probably have an events feed because we do offer events at this organization, etc. So you decide what that content structure is, and you build it and configure it in Drupal. So that's the role you'd have. And I mentioned earlier that we have a whole support team for the 500 offices that we work with that all they are site builders. They're not doing any coding at all. Not even theming, not even front-end development. They're just site builders. So there's a lot of power in site building, and it's a great start to a Drupal career. But where do you go from there? The next role in Drupal specifically would be a designer, themer, front-end developer. So this is somebody who's actually going in and building HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The templating engine that backs Drupal is the same as the one that backs Symfony, which is called Twig. So it's a PHP templating engine. But all that aside, you can customize the look, feel, and accessibility of your site through theming and front-end development. At the deeper level than that, you have developers. Developers build custom modules that extend Drupal's functionality, and what's interesting about being a developer is you do a lot of things where you're building custom bits, and that involves code. Front-end themer, you're also involving code. You're customizing the theme to the brand, the look and feel of the site. But the site builder has the power to go and find modules that meet their needs, install them, and get them in the project. So there are a lot of modules out there, and even at the site builder level, you can customize the ability of your site and the functionality of your site. So that's a big deal. And when it comes to each of those three roles, you'll want to level up. Eventually, or at first, you'll start off as a junior. And that could be a junior site builder, junior themer, or a junior developer. And you could start off in any one of those or all three of those. Just FYI, when I started off, I had some PHP development chops, and so I actually started off as a junior developer. Site building was completely new to me when I was thrown into Drupal. And then you can get to the mid-level and then the senior level. And there's always something to learn, no matter how senior you get. But this just kind of gives you the basic idea of how your level as a contributor to a Drupal project might be categorized, right? As a senior, I'm actually now I guess you'd call it a web solutions architect or a systems engineer. And what I do is so much more than Drupal. I'm working with Linux, I'm working with the designers, I'm building I'm building a platform that can easily be spin out and turn out websites quickly. So the thing about Drupal is just one tool in your tool belt. It can do a lot, it does a lot, but you'll need to expand and go beyond Drupal and use Drupal adjacent tools. And for the most part, there's always an open source opportunity, an open source tool that you can link in and use with Drupal, which is really great. You don't have to dish out a bunch of money to learn how to do something new, because there's an open source free available thing, and just going through the headache of installing and running that other open source thing will increase your capabilities as a Drupal developer. So salary. So that's what people are probably wondering if you're trying to get into a new career. I know folks are trying to start Drupal projects where they are, but just to get an idea of some of the salary ranges that junior, mid-level, and senior developers are getting. This is sourced from clouddevs.com article I found that they went and aggregated the data from ZipRecruiter, Talent, and Salary. And I mean, 70 to 135 is reasonable as far as salary expectations. Yeah, I'll just kind of leave it there.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So these are people who are creating a Drupal website?
These are people who are creating Drupal websites and maintaining and managing it just depends on, I guess, where they're at. Will you start here? Is this a junior salary, like out the gate? Probably not, right? But then again, I've heard it happen though. It still surprises me, but I've heard of people walking into their first job at around 70, and it's like, okay. My first job was $14 an hour, but that was in 2009. So, and like I said, I was a sport call rep at the company, and I just kept pushing it. But I got to 50K at my first salary job, and that was huge to me. And I've heard of some of the guys here in this community, right here in Chattanooga, have blown me away and blown me out of the water. My timeline on my salary milestones, they just blew me out of the water. They got there so much faster. They pushed so much harder. They talked to the right people and moved in their career at the right times and are doing well. So it just depends on the organization you're at and your ability to negotiate and how hungry you are, I think. And yeah, I don't know.
I'll give you full disclosure on mine. I'm a base PHP MySQL developer, and 9 years ago I self-taught. I got my first job at 42. The next job was at 65. They didn't really give it. I got up to 72 there in 5 years. My next job was at 109.
Yeah.
My first salary was also exactly 42.
It's pretty common for us to go into you get that first really crappy job for 1 to 2 years,
Yep.
and you are now viable. And those jumps are pretty normal. It's when you talk about getting layoffs, they also happen in the tech world, but it's also not common anymore to stay someplace. Like universities tend to keep people for 5, 10, 15 years, but commercially, if you're out in the enterprise world, at this point, people jump jobs because it's the only way to get good raises, but those jumps are jumps,
Yeah.
usually. Sorry, I just thought you might.
No, that's absolutely perfect.
I'm in government, so
Yeah.
I don't know those salaries.
Well, and for some
They-
people, in local government and in state government, once they become a developer, your jumps can sometimes be within government, right? Jumping into a different position because you get that next
Yeah.
pay grade
Yeah.
with the new thing. So you can still see that.
Yeah.
It's not as dramatic because you have better benefits, right?
Yeah.
But you can still get those jumps in a government setting if you're willing to move to different departments.
Okay.
Yep. And your experience in government can be useful to a contractor.
Oh, heck yeah.
Let me just throw that out there, that contractors do well in government. I work for a contractor for the government. And yeah, we do well. So, but there are people there who have been there for 20 years, sometimes more. It's like, wow, that's insane to me. I was with Lee for 5, and that's insane to me. And then I've been here now for 4. That's crazy. So I actually love my team, and I feel like I could be there forever. I love where I'm at. So where is Drupal going? This is a fun one. And unfortunately, I feel like the visibility on this screen isn't great, but hopefully we can enjoy this anyways. What time is it real quick? 10:19. And what time does this end?
Is it a 15-minute turnover? The next classes start at 11.
Okay.
But I don't know when you end.
If you're interested in sort of state-of-the-art web technologies, WebAssembly, please, by all means, go check out his session tomorrow. And then finally, you saw a new installer for Drupal. I'm sure all of you have seen the current Drupal installer. I can tell you the first time I saw the updated installer, I couldn't believe it was Drupal. Like, it looks so different. And it's not that it looks good, it does look good, but it also had support for recipes. And that's the features that you saw are all recipes. So I'll talk a little bit more about recipes in a minute. But first, let's continue our demo. All right, so Sarah has installed Drupal CMS, and you saw that she had enabled the recipes feature, the events feature, and so now she can click on events, and from there she can add a new event. And so you can see this date and time widget that comes with the events recipe. It allows her to set a start date, end date, duration, these kinds of things. She has some content prepared, and so she copy-pasted her first event in the form, as you can see here. And she can also add a video, so she can open the media library and add a quick video to her first event as well. And once she's ready, she can publish this, and she created her first wine tour. Now, you can see the recipe comes with all kinds of out-of-the-box features like maps and addresses, but there's also this calendar tab that was added. And this essentially allows her, because she's an administrator, to move events around, to change the date, the duration, the start time, the end time, these kinds of things. Now, of course, because she's an administrator, she can do these things, but she can also quickly check what this does for anonymous visitors, so people visiting the site. They can still get this view, but obviously, as you know, they can't move these events around. And then finally, there's like features like these little links here that allow people to add the event to their calendar really easily and really quickly. So all of this is now available to her with just one click of a button. In the process, she was also able to consult some documentation, end-user documentation, I should have, written for people like her, written for marketers, and you can see a table of content, but then she can also click into the events page, and there she gets really great-looking documentation, screenshots, that teaches her how to do certain things. So it looks really good. So let me unpack that a little bit as well. So the first thing that you saw are recipes, and I'm sure you've heard about recipes by now, but I believe that they're actually game-changing for Drupal. Why? Because they bundle years and years of expertise into repeatable shareable solutions. So essentially, a recipe combines modules and content and configuration and documentation and packages that all up and makes it available for people to install with one click of a button. And so when a developer, maybe takes a day or so for a developer to put all of this together, you can now basically install in a few seconds. And that's great for Sarah, but it's also great for Tom because it really just simplifies the learning experience. At no point did you have to go and learn about content types and all of these things or permissions. And so it really accelerates site building for everyone, not just for the Sarahs of the world. You can even use it within your organization, whether that's an agency or an end-user organization, to share best practices internally or externally. And so, pretty powerful. I'll show you a couple more recipes later in this demo. We do have a session about this as well, so if you're interested in
It's recorded at DrupalCon Barcelona.
And learn more about how to...
So there's international events too. And we've got a few here who do go to the international events every once in a while. Lee's made the Ireland one.
It looks great. We also used the new brand for it. And I truly believe that good documentation will be critical to the success of Drupal CMS. And we're going to talk a little bit more about documentation later on in the presentation. But first, let's keep going through the demo.
In just a few minutes, Sarah has taken her first big step into Drupal CMS. But while she's been exploring, one of the freelancers on her team has uploaded a low-res image to the existing site. It's one of those little mistakes that drives her mad. I wonder, thinks Sarah, could I stop this happening if we were using Drupal CMS? Sarah works with lots of freelancers, so she needs the new site to be foolproof. She wants the dashboard to say wine tours, not events, so nobody gets confused about what kind of event goes in there. Tom suggests that maybe Drupal CMS's AI can help her, but Sarah's not sure. Samovin has just ditched an experiment with AI for answering customer questions. It was terrible. The AI couldn't even learn their own FAQs. But Tom seems convinced this time will be different, and so Sarah gives it a shot.
All right, now before I jump into the AI demo, which I'll show you, I do want to say a few things. One is that I really believe that AI will empower anyone to become a no-code site builder. I really do believe AI is a pretty important part of our future. And so really I have three convictions, I would say. One is the fact that I'm convinced that Drupal must embrace AI, not only to stay relevant, but also to fulfill our mission of helping site builders. And two, I'm actually convinced that Drupal is ahead of others when it comes to using AI, and I'll show you that in our demo. But there's a third conviction that I have. My third conviction is that we need to build the right kind of AI. Now, for the avoidance of any doubt, I mean the helpful AI on the right, not the evil one on the left. And essentially, we need to guide our users to use AI responsible. Now, Drupal is a large open source project. We power a large number of websites in the world, and we need to help set the standard for how to use AI and how to use AI responsible, because I do believe others will learn from us. And so before showing you a demo, I would love to talk a little bit about responsible AI policy, something that we've been working on. And our approach to responsible AI is anchored in 4 key principles. One is that we always need to have a human in the loop. What that means is that a human needs to be able to review AI decisions, revert AI decisions, those kinds of things. 2 is transparency. You need to be clear, really clear about where AI is used, so that AI isn't like a hidden feature. And 3 is we need to support different language models, swappable large language models. And the idea is that users, they need to be able to choose AI models that fit their preferences, whether it's based on privacy, ethics, bias mitigation, even customization. A lot of organizations, they work in very specific industries, and they may want to use a very specific large language model that is specifically trained for that industry. And the 4th principle is that we will help promote responsible AI. Where possible, we will guide our users to those AI models that reduce bias, prioritize energy efficiency, respect copyright, uphold strong ethical values, you name it. And there is more details behind this, and we'll be posting those on Drupal.org in the next few weeks. But for today, I just wanted to give you 4 high-level principles that we have kept in mind when building our AI capabilities. Now, based on these principles, let's take a look at how Sarah uses AI for site building. All right, so the first thing that Sarah wanted to do is she wants to rename events to wine tours, because that's easier for her users and she don't want them to be confused. So she can open the Drupal AI agent and essentially type and ask the AI agent to rename the content type. And she does, and then when she reloads that page, we can see that it was renamed. So super easy for her to rename a content type. So that's pretty cool. Now, she wants to take this a step further as well. The next thing she wants to do is add an image to the content type. Images are important when promoting wine tours. And so in Drupal speak, she needs to add an image field, and she's essentially going to ask the Drupal AI to add an image field. And she can type that in her own language. She doesn't need to know Drupal terminology. And then the next thing she wants to do is basically avoid that people upload these low-res images. So she wants to configure this image field, and she asks the AI to make it high-res. And as you can see, that worked. And the AI agent even knew that high-res meant 1920 by 1080. So it automatically figured out the right settings. And then finally, she wants to make sure that the image field is always at the top of the form, so that her content creators will never forget to fill it out, so it is a little bit more visible. And she adds that as well. And you'll see that it will move up to the top of the form. And all of this is pretty special, I think, that we were able to make this work. And I'm going to show you in a minute how this all works. So yeah, here you can see that the image field moved to the top. What do you think? Cool?
So
Yeah.
that she was telling the AI
All right,
to
there's one
do
more thing she wants
things
to do.
and set
She
up.
actually
So the
has
site
one
building, yeah.
She would love to classify them by wine region. So in Drupal speak, again, she needs to create a taxonomy. But typically,
Again, just to clarify, what she's doing is changing the interface
Yes.
that an editor will use. So she's site building with AI. This is the
people don't know
future.
that word. They don't know that that's the feature that they need to use. And so users could spend some time figuring that out. But Sarah can skip all of that again using AI. And she can basically ask the AI agent to add a wine region. And not just that. I hope you caught it. But she also asked the AI to populate the taxonomy with the top 20 wine regions in the world. And it did that as well. So it created a field and it populated it with content. And obviously, that saves her a lot of time. Now, with all of these things configured, she essentially decides to create the first, or another wine tour, I should say. And she decides to use the image field that she just added. And you can see her uploaded image. And unlike her freelancers, she uploaded a high-res image, and so it all worked. Then she can configure the date and time. It's the same widget that you saw earlier in the events recipe. And then she can add some content, and you'll see her set the wine region as well. Now, as she tries to save the wine tour, turns out that the alt text for the image is a required field because the company cares about accessibility requirements. And she can actually use AI to help generate an alt text. Now, this is a great example of a human in the loop where somebody can actually review what the AI generated before hitting save. And so she makes some edits, hit save, and she created a second wine tour. pretty cool. So what you saw is AI for site building. And I've shown this video to a few non-developers, and literally their jaw dropped. They didn't think this was possible with Drupal. I've also shown it to developers, and their jaws dropped as well, quite honestly. And honestly, I haven't seen many competitors do things like this. And I think this shows that Drupal continues to lead and push boundaries, and that we need to keep this innovation going. Now, the good news is that all of you can help with this. The AI code that you just saw is all open source, and it's built as a framework so that people can contribute to it. You can have your own contributed modules to expand it. And I want to give a special thanks to Really Give. We've been leading the development of all of the AI capabilities that you just saw. Yeah, let's give them an applause. Yeah. Jamie and Marcus have a session. Can actually read it. Preview how we connect or help. So let's take all AI agents. Everything that you saw in the AI demo is done actually by what we call AI agents. And you can see the list of AI agents here. We have like, 7 or so. And so, manipulating the image, what you saw in the video was done by the field type agent. Again, adding the wine region, that was done by the taxonomy agent. So you get the idea, right? In essence, these agents, they connect the Drupal APIs with the AI providers.
So if you're interested in deeper levels of development, building agents might be a direction you might take as a developer who's reaching mid-level, senior level.
And if you're a module maintainer, you can probably ask yourself, would my module benefit from having an AI agent, like the ones you see? Because you can easily add them using the AI framework. Now, I mentioned that we want to be LLM agnostic, meaning that users should be able to choose their own LLM. And this is done by AI providers, which you can see on this screen. And we support about 7 today, but I believe this list will grow in the future as more of these things become available. And so all of this is built using an abstraction layer. And it's that abstraction layer that gives people choice. So organizations can even bring their own AI provider if you build your own LLM. And so for the demo, we used OpenAI. But again, I think in the future, there will be many alternatives.
Let me say something about that abstraction. One of the things that the Drupal community has been great about, not just with AI, but always in the past, it seems like they realize as developers in building contrib modules that, hey, this module over here does this, and this module over here does this, and this module over here does this. And they're all kind of starting to do the same thing. Why don't we work together and build kind of an abstraction of these things, and so that these modules can build on top of what the centralized module brings to the table, and now there's an abstraction layer that allows somebody to come in and build something on top of that, or some customization, something different in a 4th module, but it's using the underlying framework of the one to rule them all. And that has happened again and again in the community, and it ends up usually working out really great. Because as a developer, you have something to work with, or as a site builder, your choices have broadened, and people's execution of certain things may lend more or less to a better solution for you than this other one did. So, just another hat tip
The
to
space
Drupal.
is moving so fast, and new things are being released out as well. Special and only map certain tasks to like the unheld sense J.
There is one last
AI transformation
piece after this AI
SEO
agent
features.
stuff.
Like all set up for wine tours, Sarah realises she now has to explore the SEO features. She knows SEO is important, but she's dreading it. This is not her forte. She texts Tom. Tom, SEO, help! Tom replies, you might be able to install it using Project Browser. Look, I'm stuck in meetings the rest of the day, but I can help you tomorrow. Tomorrow, thinks Sarah. Well, I might as well try myself now, while I'm waiting.
All right, so you saw in the installer that Sarah only enabled the events recipe, and so now she has to go and enable the advanced SEO recipe, so she can actually navigate to Project Browser, as you can see, and then she can go ahead and just click install on the advanced SEO recipe, and this essentially installs and configures over a dozen modules in just a couple seconds. And again, what would take a developer maybe a day or multiple days to learn and figure out and discover on Drupal.org, she can now install with the click of a button. And after she installed this, she has all of these different SEO tools available on her site. Now, SEO can be complex, right? There's a lot of parts to SEO, and but fortunately, she can learn about all of these different parts. She can, go through this tour, interactive tour that explains her all the features and all the settings. As a side note, this tour feature that I'm sure some of you have seen will be included in what we call the base recipe. It's actually the base recipe, and that's available to all of the other recipes to use. So this is how different recipes can make things easier for users to learn about. And so here, she can see some of these advanced features like XML sitemaps and robot text configuration and much, much more. Now, she's relieved to see that everything is kind of pre-configured. But she also sees how she can be able to make changes to all of these things, right? And so setting this all up can be done in less than 5 minutes, or she can go off and spend probably hours tweaking and configuring everything. But out of the box, it comes pre-configured. So with her SEO settings configured, she goes back to one of her wine tours. And when she clicks edit, she still sees the form that she saw before, but now towards the bottom, there's a new section specifically for SEO. And there's a number of fields in there, but I want to draw your attention to the focus keywords field. And these are where she can enter keywords for which she wants to rank highly in Google. And she types in the words wine tasting. That's what she wants to rank high for. And then you can see these little balls, green, orange, red at the bottom. These are suggestions for how she can improve her content. And so she's going to implement a few of these suggestions. So one of the suggestions was to have a title in her content with the focus keywords in it. So she adds a title. And by the way, while she's using WYSIWYG editing, she was able to use Markdown for adding a title. But she adds a title with the words wine tasting. Another suggestion was to add the words wine tasting in the URL. So even though we pre-generated easy to read URL, she can also override it. And you can see that she adds the words wine tasting to the URL. And as she does that, you see these balls go from orange and red to green. And so she knows instantly that some of these changes will be good for her SEO. So she gets that instant feedback. So a few things to unpack here. Obviously, what you saw is Project Browser. Didn't spend a lot of time on it. You saw some UX and UI improvements, but you also saw how we now have support for recipes in Project Browser, which is a big new development. I'm pretty excited. Now, on the side, we need help finishing Project Browser. One of the first big next.
I think that's about it. He's just putting out a call for help by the community for building new recipes and getting the recipes they want completed out to the finish line.
You'll never convince Maria.
Okay, so
Be real quick.
yo,
I'm installing it, spinning up a Docker image here, and I chose standard. I'm assuming I was going to follow along. I didn't know if we were installing it, starting from the beginning.
so this session right here is actually a Career in Drupal. In the next session, it's actually an all-day training. We will spin up a new project. It'll actually be using Gitpod, so you don't have to have anything locally. You'll be able to do everything from your browser. And we will install and configure and site build a Drupal project today. Does that work?
Okay, yeah, and I was there now, so are we naming the date just so I guess I can pull out of this?
I mean, go for it, because I'm one of those two. While the session's going, I'm working. I've got to start tinker with and play with. As far as you can use the standard install profile. That's I think what we're going with today. But you will miss out on a couple of things. So when I do bring up the QR code, I do suggest follow along once we get jumped in.
Okay.
There. Okay. All right. The project we'll be spinning up has a couple of just minor inclusions that don't come with standard. So
I seen right here there was an option for like a demo site, like some sort of a magazine.
yeah, that would be Umami Food Magazine.
That's it.
It was a big initiative in Drupal to, hey, the website is functional, but it doesn't look great. If somebody's spinning up the site for the very first time and we want to demo this to our boss or to a potential client, what can we spin up? And so Umami Food Magazine was a made-up brand, and they did this whole initiative to make a Drupal out-of-the-box, nice-looking, functional website that shows off Drupal core's capabilities. And so that's what Umami Food Magazine is. Let me finish this one last piece, and then I've got a couple more things, and then we can take a bunch of questions, because I'm sure you have some. And then we can kick off the training if anybody wants to go on to other sessions.
Optimized it for
Feel free.
SEO. But her whole site has hundreds of pages, and almost all of them need to be migrated. This is going to be a nightmare. Weeks of boring, repetitive copy and pasting. But unless she can do it, she'll never convince Maria of the benefits of switching to Drupal. And so, encouraged by how easy the AI has been so far, Sarah asks it for help.
All right, so this is actually Sarah's existing website, non-Drupal website. A challenge that she has with it is that all of the content is basically packed into a single body field. Who does that, right? And so it's essentially one block of HTML. Now, Drupal, on the other hand, uses a more structured approach to data. And so the goal here is to convert that HTML block to a structured Drupal content type. And so, as mentioned, she's going to ask AI to help. So she sees this feature, import with AI. And what's really cool about it is you can just enter the URL of our website, and it will crawl the content, and the AI will handle the complex task of mapping all of the content to the different fields. And then when she navigates through it, you can see it figured out the date range and put it in the date field. So it figured out all of the fields. It also analyzed the content, and it knows that it was about Tuscany. So it automatically populated the wine region field to be Tuscany, and it figured out the image and stored the image in the image fields, which is pretty powerful.
Guys, I've been on migration projects that have been nightmares for 6 months at a time. And when you're talking about unstructured data, right, everything's just thrown into the body field of some prior content management system or other website. And you've got to bring it into your now well-structured Drupal project, because Drupal is structured content. You know, an event is an event because it has not only a title and a body, but it's got a date range, right? There's structure to the event content type. But how are you going to migrate that from a site that doesn't have any of that structure? Good luck figuring that out. Even as a deep level developer, it has been painful. Now AI has the ability to just siphon that data and correctly drop it into the structured format. That's insane.
That's fancy.
Yeah.
Prototype of Drupal CMS is looking good. Sarah's marketing colleagues can't believe she built it, but Sarah's still got a nagging doubt. She hasn't created that feature she wanted that lets visitors explore wine tours by regions. And that could mean going into a lot of technical detail.
All right, so she essentially has to do one more thing. Like in the beginning, she wanted to create this page where people can visit her site, and visitors can filter all the wine tours by region. So, Sarah wants to create a page, right, to do this. And in Drupal, we would typically use views to do so. Now, while views are powerful, they can also be intimidating to learn for the Sarahs of the world. Now, luckily, Drupal AI will handle all of that for her, and she can just type again in sort of words that she would use to create a page and specify kind of how she wants it to work. And so Sarah simply tells Drupal AI to create a page with a specific URL, and she asks for this interactive element to be added. The Drupal AI will simply do it. Now, what's great about this is that it creates the view, and she could actually go into that view and configure it, tweak it, and tweaking a view is a lot easier than creating one from scratch. So it's a great way to learn about Drupal. Now, in this case, she doesn't, but she goes straight to the view as it is published or available for her visitors, and you can see this interactive element works, and the visitor can now filter all of these wine tours by region, all using the AI. Yeah. All right, so the last two videos is a couple of things. One is AI-assisted content migration.
Okay, that's it from the Dries note that I wanted to feature today. And by the way, Dries, this guy, is the creator of Drupal. And so he's still around to this day. It's been, I don't know how long Drupal's been around, but a while, quite a while. Right. So timing-wise, the next session is at 11. To give you guys 5-10 minutes, would that work? Okay. So I've got a few more minutes then. Let me get through a couple more things here. So that's where Drupal is going, and AI is going to be a big part of that.
So, a quick question.
Go
Are
ahead.
those AI tools already?
Not yet.
No?
Well, so there is the modules are there, and it is obviously working with OpenAI. As far as gluing it together and it coming out of the box, that has not been built yet. So you do have to be at least a site builder to be able to get the things glued together. And then as far as whether there's a cost associated with using the different LLMs, I don't even know. So I haven't even tinkered with this stuff yet myself. But that's an interesting and crazy future. It's something I definitely want to implement at my government agency. I can't wait to give this tool to the offices. This is going to be amazing.
So when it does come available in the future, like if you're currently using AI with the government office now, is this like something you add on as a new version later on? How's it tied in?
So there's Drupal core, and there are patches and fixes that come out for Drupal core. There's a schedule for that, but if it's a security fix, it comes out as soon as it's announced. But although they will announce ahead of time, hey, there's going to be a security fix, so update Drupal core on this date and be ready. And then as far as all the modules themselves, they are also versioned. And so when you've locked into a version and you've decided, this one version works with this thing that I have of Drupal core, it's locked and you're settled. As far as any updates, when a Drupal module developer is building their update path, they have to decide whether or not a version that's coming out is a breaking change or not. If it's a breaking change, they'll usually bump the major version. So you'll have 1.2.3. The 1 is the major version number. And if that changes, if that bumps, that means there's a breaking change. And so you've got to be a little more observant of what that change does to your project when you do bump. Does that mean it breaks every time you bump? No. You might not be doing anything that implements that module in a way that it actually breaks your site. But as far as a module implementation, if developers need to interact with that module, there may be changes that developer needs to be aware of and make changes to work with that. So, upgrades are fairly. There are a lot of tools out there that help with upgrades if there are breaking changes and if your setup just needs to be massaged a bit to make the upgrade. So this is.
You said you didn't know how long had been around. It said it started as a project, a student project in 2000, and it's in Antwerp, Belgium.
2000.
I thought it was going to be 2004, but yeah. Yeah. Man. So who uses or actually pays for Drupal? That's a good question. And for that, we are going to bring up a slide that another initiative that was done was, okay, how do we pitch Drupal? And there's this whole pitch deck of slides available, and one of the slides I actually showed earlier. But I didn't want to pull in all the slides from this thing for this case studies section because it is massive. So start slideshow. All right. Sports. A number of football clubs use the project. Government. I don't even know who that is. But as far as, here's Massachusetts.gov. I work for the U.S. House of Reps. My Lee works for Oak Ridge National Labs. There are a number of universities. NASA. This is actually one I was excited about. NASA.gov and VA, Veterans-Affairs.gov, both utilize something called USWDS, which is the U.S. Web Design System. So if you're in government, this is a design system backed by data.gov that is a set of components, kind of like Bootstrap, a set of components and design framework for government websites. So USWDS, and NASA and VA both took it on not only as a component library itself, but adopted it so that they have their own NASA or VA Gov branded style, living style guide. So if you're into design, if those words mean anything to you, this is pretty cool what they did. And healthcare, lots of money there.
So, what are you saying, that these organizations pay money to the Drupal organization? Is that how they pay for it?
Sorry, thank you for clarifying. So what I mean is, who's using Drupal? Who's actually, as an entity, who is building Drupal projects, right? And this is just kind of showing off. We're talking about large organizations use it. Small organizations use it too. So it could be your mom and pop shop. It could be your local lead did the website for the local Boy Scouts at some point in Drupal. But it could be also these massive organizations, thousands of people going to be interacting with the project at a login level, right? Because they're running their portion of the site. Or you need to communicate to a multiple thousand person organization in an intranet site. So it's closed off to the public, but it's something that people need to manage content and push it out to the employees and let people know what's going on. So that's another great use case, one that we also do. And so that's what I'm featuring here. Is these are recognizable, some of them, large entities who use and have implemented Drupal. And so they have teams of Drupal developers, site builders, themers, and developers backing these projects. A number of these actually in Atlanta. What is the name of those? There's a whole group of media outlets in Atlanta that have the names of which have completely escaped me yet.
CNN, right?
Yeah, CNN and not TMC. Like what?
Turner.
Yeah, the Turner Broadcasting. That whole network of media companies use Drupal. I know a number of Drupal developers down there in Atlanta. NBC, Sci-Fi. Weather.com, this was the largest traffic-did website ever. And they chose Drupal. So as far as performance goes, like, there you are. Here's proof of that. So, I mean, yeah, so if there's any doubt about, can I really build a career in Drupal? Yes, you can. There are big companies paying large teams to build and manage their Drupal projects for bigger and larger teams than that. Right. Right. So this is the Q&A session. So before we kick off to the next session, if any folks wanted to check out any of the other sessions here today, after this, head on over. Otherwise, we will be doing the Drupal in a Day training in this room, and I'm happy to take any questions until we start that.
What time does that start?
Officially at 11. So if you need break time, go use that too.
Listen, I'd like to ask, maybe you could show us sometime today, you mentioned the security updates. I'm an AppSec engineer, so immediately after you get done, show me the baby steps through Drupal today. I'll probably run home. I want to start scouring over a bunch of code and what's built. Could you show me some references that you found helpful in the past for looking up security?
So I'll say this. Drupal community has a security team. They monitor not only Drupal core, but Drupal modules for security issues. So if you've built a Drupal module,
Yeah.
or there's one out there on the web that has been fully released, it falls under the Drupal security team's purview to review it. And so they have their automated tools, and when they announce a security vulnerability, they'll announce it ahead of time. but not the details of what that security vulnerability is. And then obviously on the day of, the release has been made with the update to fix the security hole. The description of what it is included in that, and so there's a whole exercise on that side of things that's done there. As far as a developer working on a project, I keep everything in environment variables, and there is a module. So I'll say this, that there are, so you can keep them in a environment variables, you can keep them in a vault, so a third-party
Right.
vault software, right? And there is a module that allows you to manage that connection to whatever you're using, whether it be environment variables, a vault, a text file, somewhere, whatever it is that you decide on. That module will allow you to work with that. But even outside of that, if you end up not using that module, you're building something custom, you can keep things in environment variables if you like. But yeah.
What is usually the core server in Drupal? You guys mostly run off of Apache?
So it can be Apache or Nginx. It just needs to, whatever it is, PHP, and I think we're on PHP 8.2. We're about to hit 8.3. It might actually already support 8.3.
Okay.
So yeah, whatever runs and serves that.